how NarAnon can help us in our own recovery. That might be a foreign concept to some of you that might be new to NarAnon, but much like the addict struggles with addiction themselves with a physical substance, we have our own addictions, which is usually going to be enabling, attempt to control, etc. And to give you an example of all these behaviors, I'm going to read my favorite passage from the little NarAnon Blue Book. It has all the information, basic information you need for NarAnon. This section is called Helping, and this essentially defines the role that we get placed into as a loved one of an addict and what struggles that causes us to have and how we can change those unhealthy behaviors to healthy behaviors through the works of the 12 steps. Helping. To watch is not to love. Our role as helper is not to do things for those we are helping, but to be things. Not to try to train and change their actions, but to train and change our reactions. We can change our negatives to positives. Fear to faith, contempt for what they do, to respect for the potential within them. Rejection to release with love. Not try to make them fit a standard or image, nor expect them to measure up to or down from that standard, but give them an opportunity to develop the best within them, regardless of what that best may be. Dominance to encouragement. Panic to serenity. False hope, self-centered, to real hope, God-centered. The rebellion of despair to the energy of personal revolution. Driving to guidance, and self-justification to self-understanding. As we change in such ways as these, we change the world about us and all people in our world for the better. Self-pity blocks effective action. The more we indulge in it, the more we feel that the answer to problems is a change in others or the world, not a change in us. Thus, we become a hopeless case. Exhaustion is the result when we use energy in mulling over the past with regret, or in trying to figure ways to escape a future that hasn't even come yet. Likewise, setting up an image of the future and anxiously hovering over it for fear that it will or won't come true uses all of our energy and leaves us unable to live today. Yet living this day is the only way to have a life. Take no thought for the future actions of others, neither expecting them to be better nor worse as time goes on. For in such expectations, we are really trying to create. This is our higher power's job, not ours. Love alone can create. Love and let be. This is one of my favorite parts. Remember, all people are always changing. When we judge them, we judge on what we believe we know of them, failing to realize that there is much we do not know, and that they are constantly changing as they try for better or worse to cope with life. Give others credit, even as all of us struggle. Give them credit for attempts at progress, even if their changes are not apparent. And above all, give them credit for having had many victories which are unknown. We are all of the same cloth, though of a different cut. Remember that we too are always changing, and we can direct that change consciously if we so desire. Ourselves we can change, others we can only love. It's one of my favorite passages in the Blue Book. And, some people come to Al-Anon or Nar-Anon in the hopes that they will learn how to get their addicts sober, which someone actually mentioned earlier today. But that's not what you're going to get out of these rooms. You will get a happier and more healthy life. And through these rooms and through working the 12 steps, you will find people that have insight into your struggles. And you'll learn how to shift the focus from your addict or your loved one back to yourself. And you'll have focus and happiness in your own life. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, a lot of people come to NarAnon because they have a spouse or a child that struggles with addiction. But my loved one is my mother. She is still currently an active alcoholic. And growing up, I had a very inconsistent childhood, to say the least. From a very early age, I was the person that she went to. for counseling and help, and I would do all the things that as loved ones we try to help them. We try to control their behaviors. I would pour out some of her wine and put water back in, hoping that might change our circumstances and affect my future in a positive way. I would take the wine out of the mug that she had put in the car before we were going to drive somewhere so that she wouldn't have it and wouldn't notice it was gone until after we'd left. I would make excuses to my little brother, oh, she's just tired, she's napping, when instead she would be passed out in the other room. I just wanted to tell you a brief bit of my history because the whole focus of NarAnon is to talk about ourselves. And through that upbringing, I got very good at comforting people and being empathetic, and it naturally drew me to psychology. So that's what I majored in at Ole Miss, and it's really hard to get a job with just a bachelor's in psych. It is. So I've been a server since I was 15, and I continued that after I got my degree. But then I was like, man, I really would like to use this degree that I'm paying off student loans for. And so I started working at a treatment center. It was just an entry-level position. I started at the night shift, but we preach the 12-step. It's a 12-step recovery program. And so I thought to myself, I can't be selling what I'm not buying myself. So I need to check out these 12 steps if I'm going to encourage the patients to do that. And so I read them, and I was like, this probably would help me a lot. And I started step 1 and stopped. For a while, because step 1 is probably the hardest. I mean, that one took me about a good year to adapt to. We admitted we were powerless over the addict, that our lives had become unmanageable. And that's talking about our lives, not just their lives. And my life was unmanageable in that I didn't go a day without worrying over my addict. I didn't go a day without giving her advice or consultation or comfort. I never didn't answer my phone, even if it was 3 o'clock in the morning and I had a 12-hour shift the next day and she was just shit-faced and wanting to vent. My life was unmanageable because I was like, I've got a good job, I'm working in my field, I've got my degree. How am I not happier right now? And I was miserable because I was still caught up in my addiction, which is the helping of our addict, is the enabling. So I was like, why isn't this working? And I just had this little voice say, you should probably try the 12 steps again. And so I went back to that, and it took me about a year to work through the 12 steps on my own, because at that time we didn't have a Nar-Anon or an Al-Anon meeting that I was able to go to where I lived. And it was hard. The character defects is an entire journey. You'll get to that later in the 12 steps. And I actually got to a point where I was able to make amends to my mother for things that I had done wrong in our dynamic. And that was a pretty big breakthrough. But with working the 12 steps also comes setting healthy boundaries. And in light of the fact that my mother is still in active addiction and not seeking help in any ways, therapy or otherwise, one of our boundaries, unfortunately, is that we don't talk a lot. Because inevitably it's going to go to manipulation and passive aggressiveness and toxicity. And we can't control what they do, but we can control how we react. And so half of the time, my healthiest option is to just not interact at all. But the other half of the time is to not be prodded by her barbs. So I was called to the 12 steps, and it was a huge journey for me. But it wasn't until 8 months ago when we started the NarAnon group in Oxford that I feel like I have made giant leaps and bounds mentally and spiritually, because we do need each other in this. And working the 12 steps is amazing and it's phenomenal, and you can do it from anywhere. But having peers around you that are constantly striving to be healthier versions of themselves as well, it's a wonderful support system. And addicts, they have support in NA and AA, and this is where we come for support. I still have my tendencies. I'm still prone to anxiety about the future, wanting to help all those around me by giving advice and you should do this and what can I help you with? Sure, let me fill that out for you. But at the same time, the 12 steps has given me an internal compass to know when I'm veering off the wrong path. It's helped our relationship. I'm able to make amends when I lash out and I react instead of receive with love. But it doesn't make you perfect. We're never going to be perfect. We shouldn't even strive for that. But it certainly helps you grow. And that's all we are in control of. We're only in control of how we react and what we do and the decisions we make in our lives. And if me wanting sobriety for my mother would make her get sober, she would have been sober 20 years ago. If that was enough, if us wanting that for our addict was enough, none of us would be sitting in here right now. And that's the harsh reality of it, is it's totally out of our control. But the good news is, I truly believe that there is something in control, and that's my higher power. And that's going to be a God of your definition. I call mine the source, but addiction doesn't bias against or towards any religion. So having the support system of peers that are trying to do the same thing you're doing, and having a higher power above you that will comfort you and guide you and say, let me handle things. And also the 12 steps that lets you work on your own character defects and let go of these toxic patterns that have developed over a lifetime. It really has saved me in a lot of ways. I never thought that I would be so at peace with the fact that my mother might never put down the bottle. And I've come to a place where I'm okay with that. And I never thought that I would be so at peace with the fact that I may never have a real mother-daughter relationship. Our roles were always reversed. But that's okay, because that's her journey. And I'm on my journey. And that's the only thing I can control. So the 12 steps really benefit us in numerous ways. And I used this metaphor earlier. But as the loved ones of addicts, we all have buckets, okay? And in the buckets, there's water. And that water is our emotional resources, our financial resources, anything that we can, hey Barry, anything that we can give to other people is the water in the metaphorical bucket, okay? And as someone that is a loved one of an addict, I ladled out all of my resources to her all the time, to where my bucket was constantly empty. And I never had a way to refill the bucket. Through therapy and stuff, I learned to meditate and do yoga and self-care, shower every day. That's a big one. But it wasn't sticking, because whatever I would put in, I was still giving out. And with therapy, I realized that I had holes in the bottom of my emotional bucket. Holes of self-esteem, feelings of helplessness, perfectionism, anxiety about the future. And through therapy and working the 12 steps, slowly those holes started to close up. And with continuing to work the 12 steps, especially the 12th step, when you give to others, you get more back. So my emotional resources, my bucket, eventually started to fill back up. And that's the best thing that we can do for ourselves. The bucket is a metaphor for self-love. And if we don't have self-love, we have nothing to give to others. Oftentimes we're encouraged to put others before ourselves, like you were saying earlier. And that's all well and good, but if that's all you ever do, you're not going to have much to give at the end of the day. So the 12 steps have truly helped me keep my bucket full. And I have started to break the habit of ladling out my emotional resources to everyone else but myself. Of course, I have relapses in my addiction. And even though I've set wonderfully healthy boundaries with my addict, my loved one, that doesn't mean that those behaviors that are toxic and bad for me don't transfer to other loved ones. Kevin gets so much shit, I don't know how he's still here. He's a tough cookie to stick it out, because we have these tendencies. Character defects don't just fade overnight. And, Rose was talking to me outside earlier. I've been working the 12 steps for 4 years, and there's periods of time where we both have been really good at it. And it's like, man, I'm owning this life shit right now. And then there's other times where we fall right back into it, and it's like we didn't learn anything in the first place. But this is always here. This is always going to be here for you. And having a room that I know is going to be there every Monday night at 6 o'clock in Oxford, no matter what I'm going through, it gives you something, But the good news is, and I picked this up from NA, is no matter how many bad decisions you make in a row, you can always start the day over. So even if you've done everything wrong, you have answered that call from your addict. You have given them money. You have told them what to do, not from your own perspective, but what they should do in their own life. You have an opportunity at any second of any minute to say, I'm going to hit the reset button and I'm going to start this day over. And from this point on, my reactions will be from a place of love and healthiness as opposed to the others. The 12 steps have changed my life. It all started with starting a job at a treatment center, and that was 4 years ago. And they kept saying to the patients every day, we have the answers right here. We have the tools. All you have to do is pick them up and use them. And by exploring that on my own, even as a non-addict, it saved me. And I feel closer to my higher power than I have in my entire life. Because getting caught up in the addiction or your loved one's addiction, it makes you kind of sever that connection. You're looking to yourself for answers all the time. You're asking yourself what you should do. And if I do this, maybe they'll do this. If I do this, maybe, plan A through Z for whatever their behavior is going to be. But we're not supposed to have the answers. That's what the higher power is for. All we can do is trust that there's somebody out there that's looking out for us and loves us and wants us to be the healthiest version of ourselves. And through that connection and working the 12 steps, it really does help you become a healthier version of yourself. And through that, you're better able to love everyone in your life, not just your addict. You can give back, and you can be a source of love and have serenity. Sometimes it may be fleeting, but it's always there for you. And thank you for letting me share today.
Thank you,
Thanks
Juliette.
for sharing.
I'm Rose.
Hey, Rose.
Recovery. Recovery implies regaining something that was lost. In this process, from birth till now, somewhere along the way I lost Rose. Who I was, what I wanted, what I liked, what I thought, what I felt, what I needed, what I would tolerate, what I would not tolerate. Lost my voice. So this is a process of rediscovery for me. Who am I? It's an exciting journey. 4-step can seem kind of scary, but it's not. It's a matter of looking at me and saying, okay, I developed these behaviors as a child for self-preservation, to survive an intolerable situation that I didn't have any choice in. And they worked. I survived. But they don't work for me now. So a lot of this is me unlearning what kept me alive and developing adulting skills. And this process of growth and discovery comes in spurts and starts and stops and 3 steps forward and 10 steps back and oh God. What I knew 20 years ago, I started working on myself back in '86 and was doing really well. And somewhere along the line, I lost myself again. Found myself right back in the same behaviors. Wow. So it is a process. I'm never finished, because the day I get it perfect, I won't be here anymore. But I've discovered in this process, the first step is awareness. I can't change anything unless I become aware of it. It's that looking in the mirror and saying, these were the things that were good. And these are the things that, maybe not so good. These are the things I want to hang on to and continue to do. These are the things that, with God's help, I can change. So awareness. Every character deficit also has a flip side. There's a positive and a negative side. So our defects are assets that have gone too far. So learning how to moderate that. And so as I develop awareness, here's my process. I will catch, as I progress, first I will catch myself after the fact. Dad, Bernie, I did it again. And then as I grow some more, I'll catch myself in the middle of it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it again. And then as I progress some more, I'll catch myself before I do it, and I go, I almost did it. And then as I progress more, I say, I didn't do it that time. It's a process. It's, can't explain other than if I don't know who I am, how can anyone else know who I am?
Thanks for sharing those.
Thanks.
Thank you.
They do, I'm sorry, I'm Juliette.
Juliette.
They do a group, I think you said once a month,
Yeah.
more alike than different. And that's talking about how we as loved ones are actually more like our addicts than we are different. And there's a phenomenal NarAnon workbook that you can actually purchase. It's spiral bound and it guides you through step by step and has all these prompting questions. And on step 4, which is where you take a fearless moral inventory of yourself, we are more like our addict than different in that if your loved one has ever lied to you, you have also lied to yourself at some point or lied to others on their behalf. If your loved one has ever stolen from you, you have also stolen serenity from others while trying to control their actions, or stolen empathy from other people because you can't put yourself in their shoes. We're more alike than different. You know, every character defect that an addict can identify with, I'm pretty sure we could identify with in some way. And the whole point of this is to focus on ourselves. And I know that we all come here with a lot of things built up. You know, I spent the first half of my life suffering in silence. Because we had to maintain that image. And I'm from a family whereas if you don't talk about it, nobody's got a problem.
Sure.
Yeah.
My name's Rusty,
Rusty.
and I'm a double winner, as they call me. I sit on both sides of the table. The 12 steps, I want to share this. I'm doing a workshop this afternoon at the NA convention on some NA history, and where the 12 steps actually came from is one of the topics that we talk about in my history workshop. The More Alike Than Different is a meeting that my home group has the third Sunday of every month, and we actually read out of the basic text of Narcotics Anonymous. And something that I've come to realize in this is I thought, okay, it's exactly alike. Everything parallel down the line. Because I sit on both sides of the fence, I can see both sides. And it finally dawned on me that the disease process is the same. The recovery process is the same. The difference is in the identification with other folks who have done and felt what we have done and felt. You have to accept the fact that the disease of addiction is a disease, and that it directly makes 10 people sick for every one person that actually has it. Those are some statistics that I learned a long time ago, and I accept those as being true. You cannot change your flat tire if you think the carburetor's messed up. If the tank is empty of gas and you refuse to accept the tank is empty of gas, you're not going anywhere. You have to identify what the problem is. And drug addicts think their problem is drugs. Well, NA teaches them different. NarAnons, codependents, enablers, think their problem is the addict. And it's not. It's like I've always said, you got a really messed up drug addict on drugs, you take away the drugs, what you got left is a really messed up drug addict. You got a really messed up NarAnon with an addict in their life, you take away the addict, they're still messed up. Nothing changes just because the person changes, is in or out of their life. So that's where the steps come in. And I heard it put that the first 3 steps will get you started. If it's an addict, will get you clean. And if you're a NarAnon, will get you started. Life still hurts. The middle 6 make life not hurt so much. And the last 3 is a repetition of the first 9. In step 1, we admit we are powerless. Powerlessness is not a fun place to be. It does not feel good to be powerless. I don't care what you're powerless over. It doesn't feel good. And I've often been told that the first step is the only one you got to get 100% right. The rest of them you can screw up. You screw up the first one and it's going to hurt even more. I don't care which side of the fence you're sitting on. And the second one is about hope. The first one is identifying that you've got an empty gas tank and that your gas tank is empty. The second one is about hope. It don't always have to be this way. I don't always have to feel this way. I don't always have to think this way. I don't always have to act this way. That there is hope, that it can be different. Fill in your it, doesn't matter what it is. Step 3 is about asking something outside of myself to help me with that. That can be the group. It can be, a God. It can be a higher power, whatever, the universe, whatever you want to call it. And that's about, belief and faith. So I get some honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, and then I can work step 1 and get some acceptance and some surrender. And acceptance and surrender are 2 sides of the same coin. Surrender, and a lady said this at the meeting here not too long ago. She says, I don't want to surrender. I don't want to give up trying to help my addict. And I went up to her afterwards and I says, nobody does. They give up because they get their behinds kicked. In war, the losing team got their behinds kicked. That's why they surrendered. The Japanese, the Germans, whoever. Acceptance is later on, when you can get okay with it. So in step 2, I get some hope that it can be different. I can be different. My life can be different. In step 3, I find something outside of myself to help me with that. And then the middle 6, we call it cleaning our side of the street at our home group. This is where I clean up my side of the street, not the addict side of the street, my side of the street. Through the inventory process, I learn about my patterns by examining my behavior in and around the addiction. And in step 5, I share it with someone and we identify those patterns. They help me pick that out. Step 5 is about courage because it takes some kahunas to share that with somebody. The 3rd chair is empty because God's there, In 6 and 7, we talk about shortcomings and character defects. Well, I think my defects got some character after I came to this program and started, practicing them. So what's the difference between character defects and shortcomings? One is the cause and one is the acting out. The shortcoming is the acting out. You see, my character defects don't really go anywhere. They evolve. My stubbornness evolves into tenacity, which is a fancy word for stick-to-itiveness. It's just where it's coming from. And in step 7, I learned some humility. I remain teachable. I remain to the point where I can continue to learn. In 8, I make a list of people that I harmed. Not that my addict harmed, that I harmed. And that takes some looking at. And then in 9, I try to make it right. And the last 3 is a repetition of the first 9. And I was reading the 12th one. You said something about the 12th one earlier. And the 12th one gives me permission to go out and help again, right? Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others, to practice principles in all our affairs. What message? the message that NarAnon works. Whether you believe in it or not, you don't even have to believe it'll work. It'll work. It'll work whether your addict's clean or not, in a recovery program or not, still on the planet or not. This program will work if I choose to work it. They say go to 6 meetings before you make a decision about this. I don't know why the number is 6, but that's some sort of magic number. Because it's a whole different way of looking at things. I just wanted to share some thoughts on the steps. Since this is stepwise, I didn't even know it was going to be on steps. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've worked them all. 9 times in all the years. That's why I know a little bit about it.
I'm Denise.
Denise?
I read something in a book that scared the pants off of me, and I knew that I needed to continue to work the steps, change me. And it said that I could go in a room with 100 people and I would be drawn to that same type of person. And that literally scared me to death, because I think I'm better than that. But then in reality and how I walk in my life and the tendencies I have without working the steps, I'm going to end up right where I am. And that really hit home to me. So I didn't just come 6 times, because I realized that I needed to do quite a bit of work to learn how to identify that. I have 3 daughters that have been affected by this disease, and I needed to lead by example, not to necessarily change them, but that was my responsibility, you know. And if they see it works, then they have a better chance of accepting and embracing and all those things Rusty just shared. You know, I can't, because my family, my daughters are grown up, like Juliette sitting there, nice and poised and speaking such awesome truth. You know, I can't tell my little girls what to do anymore. You know, they're not little girls, but they can see my life and they can see the hope and the strength, and be encouraged by that. Or they could see their mom walk in a room with 100 people and be drawn to the same kind of person again. That's not a pretty sight. So with that, I'll pass.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guess I'll triple dip. It's a process, and it's a lifelong process, like Rose was saying. And I don't know about you guys, but through being the loved one of an addict, I developed some perfectionist tendencies. And I always seem to be harder on myself than I am on others. You know, others are easy to forgive and not judge. And it's like, no, you're doing your best, you know, but I don't give myself that same comfort. I've gotten a lot better at that. My inner voice has gotten a lot more friendly over the last 4 years of working the 12 steps. But the best advice I can give is just keep trying. You know, I got stuck on step 1 for a year. But I came back to it. And then I lived on step 4 for quite some time. But don't be hard on yourself. Like we said, it's a process. There's going to be steps forward and steps back. But through experience and peer support in the 12 steps, you can always have hope that things will be better. And maybe serenity will stick around for a couple more minutes next time.
If you work the steps, eventually the steps work you.
There you go. Just grind you into submission.
No, it just, you catch them being applied in your life and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that was happening. Because I work steps to learn the spiritual principles, and I live the spiritual principles behind the steps, and that's what I was talking about. That hope and serenity and faith and acceptance and self-discipline in 4 and courage in 5 and teachability in 7 and willingness in 6. There's integrity in step 9. When I make my amends, when I make it right, because what I did was when I was hurting people, and this was an analogy I heard, I broke off pieces of my soul and gave it away. And when I make amends, I get those pieces of my soul back. And integrity is a big fancy word for me to say. When I say something, people believe it. And I get that back. I get pieces of me back that I gave away in chasing the control of someone that I loved. And that control was 9 times out of fear. You know? I was afraid they would A, stop loving me, B, not let me in their life anymore, C, not be around, whatever. It was all fear-based. That's not love. That's fear-based control. So when I accepted that that's what I was doing, I was able to stop doing that. Codependency is a disease. I believe that. Enabling is a disease. And there's a sadness or a withdrawal or a, what did you call it, grieving period. There's a grieving period that the addicts have when they realize they can't use anymore. There's a grieving period that we have when we realize that controlling doesn't work. And that normal is a setting on a washing machine, a dryer, and a dishwasher. Outside of that, there is no normal. And there are 2 kinds of control in the universe, cruise and remote. Outside of that, it doesn't exist. So I am just fooling myself by thinking I can do something.
I don't know if y'all have noticed, we tend to latch on to some slogans that you get really fond of in NA and NarAnon. And the reason why is, when the brain, I'm not going to get too technical, but when the brain is stressed, only repetition remains. So we're actually going to have a meeting for NarAnon. You guys are welcome to come. It's from 2 to 3, and the topic is slogans. So maybe you guys could hear some of them and pick up some that would give you some comfort. Progress, not perfection. It's one of my favorites. 1 day at a time. Sometimes I have to take it 5 minutes at a time, depending on what's going on in that day. But we definitely have a lot of tools here to help you have a happier and more hopeful version of your life. And you're welcome to see what we do. I really appreciate y'all coming to this group.
Thanks. Could we end with maybe reading the 12 steps? I
Yeah.
don't think we ever did that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I'll start out. Number 1, we admitted we were powerless over the addict and that our lives had become unmanageable. Number 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Number 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Number 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Number 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Number 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Number 7, humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. Number 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Number 9, made direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Number 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, we promptly admitted it. Number 11, sought through prayer and meditation to prove our conscious contact with God as we understood Him. praying only for our knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Number 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So with that being said, encourage you to come back and practice the principles in your affair, carry the message, tell somebody out there that's a family member, hey, or a friend, don't go to that NA meeting, come go with us. There's a whole world for us, and I need you to come on that journey with me. Or I would like for you to come on that journey. How about that?
It works if you work it.
Anybody who hadn't shared want to?
I'd like to share. Hi, I'm Jamie.
Hi, Jamie.
I've been dying to speak since I heard your story. And thank you for sharing. I'll try to make it quick. I know we don't have much time. I've actually joined the program a couple of months. Actually, my husband is actually an addict who has been in recovery for 2 years and 4 months.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And what made me join the program, something had happened, in our marriage, and here, and I couldn't figure out. I was literally going crazy. Well, not only was my husband an addict, and I did not realize until with this program, and like you, I'm struggling with the first one, accepting that I'm, powerless, because I'm the type of person where I have a big heart. My father was an addict who is deceased now. My oldest brother was an addict who committed suicide on the day my daughter was born, 15 years ago, and joining this program, and I'm still learning a whole lot, but my book actually looks worse than her book. I use it, oh gosh, when I shared at my last meeting, there was a newcomer, and she looked at my book, and I have all these little colorful tabs, and I said, this right here is my tool to keep my serenity, my peace. I said, it helps me. I said, because when I start having my days and struggling, I go to my book. Like last night, I sat at the table for like 2 hours when I got home, because my brother, I recently found out, who had relapsed, and it killed my mother. And knowing what the situation what had happened, this was just a couple of days ago. His behavior was just like my oldest brother who committed suicide. And I had a conversation with her yesterday, and knowing what he did, my mother's father, her biological father, passed away when she was 12, and she had this ginormous poster-sized picture of him. You could tell it was old because it was black and white. My brother had ripped it up. And she FaceTimed me as I was at work, and it was a very emotional day because I knew what was going on. And my mom, she called me, she said, were you calling me? In which I was, and I said, how are you doing? And she said, not good, Jamie. She said, your brother ripped up the only picture I had of my father. She was like, help him. I said, Mom, I have no control of any of his actions but mine. I said, please come to me and join me in my meetings. I said, because you will understand that what Jesse has is a disease. Dad had it, Jaime had it, and my husband has it. And I said, and I tried to explain to her, because she brought it up last week, I think your brother's I think he's on something, and I was my mom is, I guess because of all what she's been through with my father for 35 years, and then dealing with my brother, who committed suicide, and then now with my brother Jesse. Last weekend, she was like, I think he's using again, she's like, you need to talk to him, and blah, blah, blah. I said, Mom, I have no control of what Jesse does. What I can do is provide him information and give it to him, and I'll be more than welcome, to go attend with him. I said, but I can't make him do anything. She said, what is wrong with you? You don't care anymore? She's like, you don't. I said, Mom, she's like, why are you talking so calm? What is wrong with you? And then she's like, I just don't like your attitude. I said, I'm sorry that I'm not yelling, Mom. I said, but I'm not going to yell at you. I said, but with this program that I have joined, I said, and I'm still learning so much. I said, it has allowed me to keep somewhat of my sanity. I said, because dealing with all of this for all these years, I did not understand that this was a disease. I said, you can't make Jesse just sober. You can't, you have no control, Mom. I said, you only have control of your own actions. So when I was telling her this yesterday, you know, because I knew she was just, it was like deja vu from my older brother, because he was hearing the voices and the paranoia and all that stuff. And then what hit it off was ripping up like the picture of my grandpa. And she was just like, I don't understand why you won't help him. And I said, Mom, it's not that I don't want to help him. I said, I can help only by providing the tools, the information that I know that I can give him. But I cannot take him by his damn ear and drag him to the meetings if he doesn't want it. He's not ready, he's not ready. And I said, right now I'm working on me, Mom. I said, I have to do, I'm working in this program, learning about myself. I said, and all of my character defects. I said, you know, do you know what acceptance? I said, do you know the true meaning of that? And I just started, and I didn't even realize it until after I got off the phone with her. I was reading her stuff from the book, and you know, and I was like, let go, let God, and you know, and you know, and she was just like, what, you know? And I said, Mom, the next time I go to my meeting, I said, you know, there's not a whole lot of them. I said, but please, I said, if I have to get off early, because every Thursdays, you know, the one I go to is on Thursdays at 6:15, which I travel, you know, a lot. So to my client's side in Walnut, Mississippi, so it takes about an hour and 15 minutes. I said, you know what I'll do? I will make sure that I schedule to where I leave early, and I'll come and get you if you would want to go. I said, please. I said, how about I bring you some literature? We could start there, you know. She's like, well, fine, you know, I'll think about it. So, that's what I wanted to share, because, like, with the 12 steps and all this,
Take her that.
honestly, like,
I've got like 6 pamphlets up there I'm going to give you.
yeah. Well, I actually brought, like, I took a bunch of them.
Oh,
because
good.
I want to give it to her, you know, because this, like I said, my book used to look like this, but I've only been in the program for 2 months. And I swear it's worse than hers. I actually had to tape mine, and then I have all these tabs, because every time you go to the back in the index and reference, and then I go back to the page and just read. And literally, like last night, I was sitting at the table and I printed off, you know, the sheet for my brother, but I was like, you know what, he was high today. I was like, you know, even though he reached out to me, you know, but I know he only did it because my mom. And I said, you know, I just sat there, you know, and was reading my book. And my husband was like, are you okay? I was like, I'm okay. You know, he's like, do you want to go see, you know, Jesse? I was like, no. I said, I'm okay. I said, I'm good. I said, you know, I said, me going over there, I said, I know in the way I am, I'm such a big heart, because I feel like I'm just like my mom. I want to be superwoman and save the world. Mm-hmm. And I can't. I can only do me. Mm-hmm. I have to start with myself, and I can only control my actions. And that's, you know, accepting that I'm, you know, the first step is a struggle. It really, really is a struggle. Amen. But I'm, like you said, 5 minutes sometimes. I know it's a day at a time, but really, sometimes I have to do 5 minutes. And like, I have to kind of step back and just like take a deep breath. And, you know, even I take my book with me to work, because when I have my moments, I'm like, okay, I'll be right back. I'm going to the bathroom. So I'll just kind of, you know, read, and then I'll be okay. But that book is a great, great tool. Thank you.
Sharing.
Thank you for sharing.
Awesome. Denise, in the meeting before boundaries, we talked about what boundaries were and were not, examples, and effects of. And one of the effects of
Setting
a boundary and change is that you're going to have flack. I'm going to receive flack, pushback.
Yeah.
And you just described pushback, and not from the addict, but from your mom, who has the same situation as you do. So expect that in your life. When we start making changes in our lives, people push back.
Yeah, it really killed me last night. You know, honestly, it killed me, because I want to help so bad, so much my brother, because I don't want to have to bury another brother. And I know just thinking about my mom and her situation, and it's like, I want to, and I kept telling my husband, I said, it's killing me right now. He said, I know, hon. I said, I want to help so bad, but I know I can't. I can't do anything about it as far as action-wise. I said, I can't, if he doesn't want help, and if he's not ready, he's not ready, and I can't force him. I can't. There's nothing I can do about it but accept it. And with my mother, I'm going to continue to, encourage her and stuff like that, because that's the reason why I grabbed all the different pamphlets, because I want to give it to her and, and let her read it. But she was like freaking out, like why I was so calm and like the way I was talking and responding. This was last weekend when she was telling me she thought he was using, and she was like, I don't like your new attitude, what is wrong with you? And I was just like, well, why am I going to get mad for? What, she's like, well, you don't care about your brother? I said, of course I do. I was like, I love him. I said, do you think, oh, thank you. I said, do you think that I like seeing him like this? I said, I said, no, it kills me. I said, but Mom, what I've learned is I can't make Jesse get sober. He has to want it. I said, he is in control of his actions, not me. Mm-hmm. All I have control of is my own. So, thank you.
The first step talks about being powerless over the addict. I really wished it said addiction, because I'm powerless over addiction regardless of whether it's in me, you, or whoever it is. Mm-hmm. But the disease is what I'm powerless over. Most addicts don't get clean until using stops working. And I believe most Nar-Anons don't give up trying to help until they realize it's not working.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to do something different. Yeah. And it does not feel good, but it is part of the process, and it's the first step.
It is. It's horrible. Like, I woke up, my husband was talking about this convention last night, and, and he was just, I said, are you going to go? He said, oh, I don't know. I said, we woke up early this morning, we were just laying in the bed. I said, honey, let's get ready. Let's go. Let's get out of here. Let's go to the convention. Come on, let's go. I said, because, I didn't want, like, any, because otherwise, I just knowing me and how I am, and I want to help, I just said, let's get out of here. Let's go. I said, if you want to spend the night, we can spend the night. I don't care. And, and he was just like, no, we'll just go for the day. So.
Well, I'm so glad you came.
Thank you.
It's 12:32.
Yeah.
We need to shut down.
Well, it's lunch.
Yeah.
It's lunch until 2 p.m.
Yes.
So yeah, we can shut it down. But I did want to say one last thing, is that none of us would be in here if we didn't want to save someone. But it's okay if that someone is you.
Yeah.
Save ourselves.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.